Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And even though most people view PlayStation as this highly exclusive brand, and in a lot of ways they are, but they are starting to shift towards being a more open platform. And with one of their newest strategies, a conversation has now emerged online about a possible Xbox-PlayStation collaboration. The idea that a highly successful PS5 exclusive could actually be inbound for the Xbox seems to be a vocal conversation. And in fact, a PlayStation developer fanned the flames even more so. And this is a really interesting topic because this could actually be beneficial for both Xbox and also for PlayStation alike. Now, we will also talk about Nintendo because they have a major problem that they really need to fix. But yes, let's just go and get right into things. And I want to go and piggyback off of a topic that we discussed yesterday. If you missed that video, make sure to go check it out. But unfortunately, there are reports going around that Ubisoft disbanded the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown team, which is also the same team that worked on Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. This is a very, very talented team. And now a new report came out today from Insider Gaming, and they corroborated the previous report. Unfortunately, yes, that team seemingly has been disbanded, as was alleged, but according to Insider Gaming sources, Ubisoft migrated those employees to various other projects, which includes Beyond Good and Evil 2, the next Ghost Recon title, and also, and this is the exciting part in my opinion, a new Rayman remake. Yeah, apparently Rayman is finally getting some recognition from Ubisoft after all of these years. It might not necessarily be a brand new title, but I'm still very interested to see how they'll approach a remake. You know, my first question here is, which game? Is it Rayman 1? Is it Rayman 2? Or is it Rayman 3? I mean, technically, it could be the entire trilogy, similar to how Activision brought back Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. But the problem with that is just that Rayman is kind of unique in the sense that it started out as a 2D platformer and then shifted over to being a 3D platformer. So I don't really think they'll do all three games, but let me know which one you would prefer to see most. I think for me, I'd like to see Rayman 2 or 3 just because we haven't had a 3D entry since 2003. It's been, unfortunately, a very, very long time. And for you Rayman fans out there, as a bit of a bonus here, the creator of Rayman, Michel Ancel, will be consulting on this project. Now, apparently this has caused some strife within the team because I guess he was involved with claims of toxic work culture back in 2020. But I think from a fan's perspective, you know, he's led some really good games in the past, and hopefully that trend will continue with this upcoming remake as well. Now, here's something really interesting that goes against something that Phil Spencer predicted early in the generation. Back in 2021, Phil Spencer told Kotaku that he believes that the Xbox Series S will outsell the Xbox Series X over the course of the generation because price really matters. Well, so far, it looks like he's slightly wrong, or at least over in the United States. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be correct in the long run. We'll have to see about all of that. But so far, according to Circana's data, the Xbox Series X makes up 51% of the total Xbox Series units sold to date. Now, to be fair here, you know, the Xbox Series S at 49% still kind of goes to show you just how important that price tag actually is. Meanwhile, for PlayStation, the physical version versus digital only is much more lopsided in favor of the disc drive option. The PS5 disc model apparently makes for 82% of all PlayStation 5 sold in the United States. Now, I've seen some people come out and say that this doesn't make sense because only 32% of games bought for the PlayStation 5 are physical. But I don't really think the numbers are ever as straightforward as they're laid out, including in this case here. First off, there was a PlayStation 5 shortage for a very long time. And because of that, I imagine a lot of people early in the generation simply bought what was available to them instead of what they would have actually preferred, which could skew these numbers. Also, in terms of digital versus physical games sold, I mean, you do have to kind of remember that there's a lot of games that don't have physical copies at all. So that does increase the digital percentage even more. So I'd actually be much more interested in hearing about the splits for individual titles. That includes both options, but with the new data that we got today, I do think that once again, we are seeing the importance of having disk drives as an option. There are still a lot of people out there, myself included, that wants a disk drive, whether that be for backwards compatibility or for new games instead. Now, we do have a brand new game to talk about today that sadly, I think a lot of people are unfortunately going to miss out on, and that's the newly released Batman Arkham Shadows. I mean, fans have been begging for a new Batman Arkham game for just such a long time, and technically we got one, but maybe not necessarily in how we expected. This is a virtual reality MetaQuest 3 exclusive, but even still, it looks like Shadows is a great entry for the Batman Arkham series. It currently has an 85 overall score on Metacritic as we speak. Now, this is only with 7 reviews, so that could change quite drastically over time. But I am hearing that it's a legitimate Batman Arkham experience, and that's exactly what we were hoping for. I think a lot of people still look at VR as kind of shovelware technology, but I'll say firsthand, there are a handful of really high-quality AAA experiences. I've had various VR headsets myself, and when a game is done right, they do offer some special experiences that you really can't replicate anywhere else, and it sounds like Batman Arkham Shadows is among that list. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't have the Quest 3, I have the Quest 2, but I mean, if there's one game out there that kind of makes me want to get the Quest 3, then yeah, this one here is the one. Okay, so let's go talk about this kind of peculiar PlayStation situation. We all know that they've committed a lot to their live service efforts this generation. Now, so far, they've not had a ton of success. They've canceled a number of different games, and the ones that they did release didn't exactly pan out. Concord, Destruction All-Stars, and Foam Stars all comes to mind. But they do have one big success under their belt, being Helldivers 2. This was a big surprise hit when they launched it earlier this year, and I mean, it just absolutely exploded across PC and the PlayStation 5. And I think it's well-deserved. It really is just a fun game to play. And apparently, this has sparked the interest of the Xbox community. Apparently, Arrowhead's Discord has gotten a lot of requests for an Xbox port, and now they've officially responded to this persistent question. Check this out. This was written up by Video Gamer, and it says, Arrowhead community manager Twinbeard has just responded to a user asking if it's impossible for Helldivers 2 to come to Xbox. The community manager provided the following response. Who says it couldn't? It's not up to us, but to Sony and Phil to duke out. But hypothetically speaking, if both partners think it would benefit them from a financial brand standpoint, it could. If Sony believes it won't, though, it won't. So he seemingly fanned the flames here that they're more than open for an Xbox port if Sony allows it. Now, that is a big if, but this has sparked a very interesting debate online. The thing about live service games is that they feed off of big communities. So the more platforms that they launch on, the more success that they can have over a long period of time. I mean, we're not talking about a AAA single-player blockbuster. That's a very different type of question. But for a game like Helldivers 2, the logic does kind of support an Xbox version in the same way that Xbox put Sea of Thieves on PlayStation, where it found a resurgence of new players that can keep that game going for an extended amount of time. Even more so, it's been pointed out that Sony has become more open to the idea of select multi-platform games. Of course, they've been making this big push to PC. Even Spider-Man 2 is coming to PC in less than a year and a half. But also, when you look at something like the upcoming LEGO Horizon, which is coming to the Nintendo Switch as well. I mean, to be fair here, they're still excluding Xbox, but that could also be because they don't necessarily believe the Xbox fan base will care for that type of game, whereas, a LEGO game does fit the Nintendo Switch much better. But then if you look at something like Helldivers 2, this is a third-person shooter, a multiplayer third-person shooter, and that is the perfect fit for the Xbox user base. I mean, a game like Helldivers 2 actually does have a good chance at success on a platform like Xbox. And in fact, we know the Xboss Phil Spencer himself wants Helldivers 2 on Xbox. He infamously once said that when I look at a game like Helldivers 2, and it's a great game, kudos to the team shipping on PC and PlayStation, I'm not exactly sure who it helps in the industry by not being on Xbox. So yeah, he very much wants this on the Xbox console, and that's where things start to get really interesting, because even after this comment, there was a rumor that cropped up from Nick Baker over on the Xbox Era podcast that he had heard a rumor that Xbox and PlayStation were in very early discussions for an Xbox port. Now, he emphasized that doesn't mean that they'll come to an agreement, but seemingly they were in some type of discussion, and now it's really just kind of up to Sony on whether or not they think it's the right move to make for their brand, which is exactly what the Arrowhead community manager alluded to in his response. I mean, maybe as the Helldivers 2 community dwindles over time, an Xbox version will become more likely. That would be a way for them to revitalize it. But let me hear your opinion about this in the comments below. Do you think Sony should do an Xbox port, or do you think this kind of muddies the water for their exclusive titles going forward? Now, before we go, Nintendo made the news once again because one of their upcoming games completely leaked out ahead of its release. This time being for Mario & Luigi Brotherhood. Now, personally, I'm really excited about this game. It's been a long time since we've gotten a legitimate, brand new Mario RPG, and while I do prefer the Paper Mario series, I still enjoy the Mario and Luigi games as well, so I'm very much looking forward to this one. Nonetheless here, though, much like a lot of other Nintendo Switch games, for whatever reason, it leaked out, and somebody posted its ROM online. So as of now, people are already playing it ahead of its release, and I'll just kind of say this. This here is the exact reason that Nintendo hates emulation. I mean, Nintendo's been under a lot of fire this year for taking down Switch emulators like Yuzu and Ryujinx, but this is kind of the reason why. Nintendo previously claimed that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was pirated over 1 million times before it even released. And it kind of seems like a lot of their first-party games are impacted by this exact same problem. They keep leaking out ahead of their official release. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll just kind of say it again here. I like emulation for a lot of different reasons. Preservation especially, because it's not necessarily easy to play a lot of these old games. But I think there's also a fine line when it comes to still active hardware like the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's one thing if people buy these games and then emulate them on more capable hardware, that's perfectly fine. But I think we all kind of know that there's also a lot of piracy that's involved for these type of games as well. And that's why Nintendo wants this type of stuff to stop. I mean, I think Nintendo's wrong in a lot of situations, but I can't really blame them for protecting their Switch hardware, their active hardware. But, I do understand that people kind of view this in different ways. This is a very great topic. So if you disagree, let me hear your reasoning below. But yeah, I think this is probably the reason Nintendo has been going after these emulators. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and peace out.